Hi guys, I'm Zach from NerdWorks Media, and in today's video we are going to be, I don't know why I was doing this, anyway, we are going to be doing part 2 of the Turbo Miata, or I suppose this is actually part 3 because the first one I did was just so I had content. Anyway, in the last video we were discussing, well, the turbo I got, the manifold I got, and a bunch of other stuff. In today's video we are going to be looking at I think actually we already talked about the blower valve, but we are going to be talking about the intercooler, maybe a little bit more in depth with my blower valve, wherever it is, and also my fuel pressure regulator, because as you can see, this one over there is damaged, and that's not fun. So yeah. Okay, we are now back with Mr. Callum. Say hi, Mr. Callum.
How's it going?
And we are now going to just discuss some things on the cooling side, which is basically the progress that Callum has made since I last saw the car, so not today, basically. So one of the very first questions that I asked Callum actually when I got here was about the silicone piping and stuff. Firstly, if it's bad to run a lot of silicone piping, and then the more piping that there is there lag involved in it?
Cool. So silicon piping, no, not bad. I know a lot of guys try to use less rather than more, and that's wise, but there's nothing wrong with it. It holds a lot of pressure and stuff. The biggest issue people have is the pipes coming off. There's two reasons for that. One is people cheap out and they use these cheap and nasty hose clamps which really can't hold any pressure. If you use the proper clamps, you get a hell of a lot of clamping force there, and of course your steel or aluminium pipes need to be flared so that they can't pull out. So you need to have some sort of beading on there. If you have a beading and proper clamps, you can run massive boost pressures, nothing ever comes loose. So silicon pipes, perfect if they're done right.
Cool, fair enough.
Yeah.
Another question, oh gosh, another question I asked Callum was, because we are currently discussing how we were going to route my intake, the current thoughts is it's basically going to do a big U-turn and then sit in that corner. We're going to make a cold air box, drill a hole through here, and have basically a pipe that intakes through there, because that'll be nice cool air away from the exhaust. We did think about putting it there, but as you can see, we've got a second fan now. I'll address that in a moment, as well as the intercooler. But for right now, this pipe, because I heard the longer your intake pipe, the more potential lag there is.
So lag, intake side does play a small part in lag, but that's also the diameter of your pipe. So we're using a 2.5-inch intake pipe, and with it being maybe half a meter, that's still considered very short. So if you're adding 10 or 20 centimeters to that, there's no measurable difference to lag. You're not going to have any performance issues. So positioning is a big thing. Turbo Miatas, we all have the same problem, which is intake, getting cool air to the intake. One of the better options, like you said, is get the filter near the firewall and have an opening, because the firewall right there gets cool air coming in under the back of the bonnet, where the bonnet meets the windscreen is a high pressure point on a car when it's moving, so you're getting cool air forced in there. So if you can intake air from there, make a nice air box around your filter, you'll get cool air. Obviously we'll make some heat shielding because that is relatively close to our downpipe and some of the hot components, so a bit of heat shielding and heat management, and we'll have cool intake temps.
Yeah. What Callum did is his intake actually sits like in his fender well down over there. I can't go that route because my car hasn't got the liners and stuff, so I end up getting water on it. Also, considering the fact that I daily my car, it's just a better option to not to have it like my way, basically, that we'll have it back there. So yeah. Why the additional fan, Mr. Callum?
Because more cooling is more good.
There we go, that's basically it.
Obviously, we have the potential for adding more heat by adding a turbo. Stock radiator here that's been cleaned and well maintained will be good enough for a street car. If we start tracking it and stuff like that, we might go to a larger core radiator. But we have extra surface area on the radiator here that is not being cooled by a fan, so add a second fan there just to maximize what we do already have there. I ran a stock radiator on my turbo car for a couple of years with 2 fans and never had any cooling problems, so making what we've got work as best as it can work.
Cool. Last but not least, the intercooler, which is down over there. Focusing, trying to, there we go.
So intercooling, much like all your cooling elements on a motor, too big rather than too small. So we fit just about the biggest core intercooler we can fit here with the space we've got without having to butcher and hammer all your bodywork around there. So the dimensions of the core on this are 600 millimeters by 230 by 76. So if you work out the volume, it's really large for the boost pressures and the horsepower that we're going to be running. This is more than adequate. So yeah, plenty of cooling. Yeah, it's obviously one of the most critical things on a turbo car. If you're not cooling intake temps enough, you run into detonation problems and stuff like that. So absolutely critical. Big, good quality intercooler is a must-have.
Cool. And then because Thomas asked, he wanted a nice close-up on those welds. They're not half bad at all. They look pretty good, actually. So there we go. So a bigger intercooler doesn't add lag or anything like that? Because again, that whole story.
Lag, yes, in theory it does. So the larger the volume between the turbo and your intake manifold, the longer it takes to fill that with pressurized air. So putting a bigger intercooler on can add lag, but if you actually measure the volume change, from a small intercooler to a big intercooler, the volume change throughout the entire system is probably 10, 15, maybe 20%. So your lag change would be a fraction of a second. And that's, I think, that's a...
It's not worth the...
It's a good compromise to make. I'd rather have half a second, or not even half a second, a tenth of a second more lag to make sure I have lower intake temperatures, which gives me more horsepower and more safety.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is what we have been currently filming today, or what I've been filming today, which is making of the rest of the intercooler piping. As we can see now, Callum has just put on that pipey over there because the blow-off valve.
Yeah, so we touched on the blow-off valve, what it does and why we need it. Best practice is to have it as close to the throttle body as you can, but if it's a bit further away, it's really not the end of the world. So I like to mount them here on this particular setup with this particular routing of the piping. Fits well here, doesn't foul with anything. It's nice and accessible, so we can adjust the preload on the spring there. Yeah, easy to run our vacuum pipes and whatnot. Keep it simple.
Fair enough. Cool. And then what kind of noises can we expect from this one, Mr. Callum?
Lots and loud.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we all want anyway. So